Hey there, amazing listeners. You've got great taste for tuning in today because this story is one you won't want to miss. Imagine walking into a business you built from the ground up, only to find it crumbling from the inside. That's exactly what happened to Lucas Grant, the CEO of a top auto repair chain who went undercover to uncover the shocking truth about his own company. What he found? Neglect, poor service, and employees struggling under bad leadership. But here's the twist. He didn't just expose the problems, he transformed the entire workplace. Stay with us for this incredible journey. Lucas Grant sat in his corner office, staring at the latest customer feedback reports with a deep frown. On paper, Grant's Automotive was thriving. Revenue was steady, expansion plans were on track, and quarterly reports looked promising. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. Customer complaints had been piling up, painting a troubling picture of declining service, rude employees, and unexpected charges for unnecessary repairs. As the founder of the company, Lucas had built his first auto repair shop from the ground up nearly 15 years ago. Back then, he knew every mechanic by name, prided himself on top-notch service, and had a hands-on approach to customer satisfaction. But as the business grew into a chain of over 20 locations, he had delegated more responsibilities, trusting managers to uphold his standards. Now, it was clear that something was slipping through the cracks. Determined to get to the bottom of the issue, Lucas decided he needed to see things for himself. But he knew that if he walked into one of his shops as the CEO, employees would be on their best behavior. He wouldn't get an accurate picture of what was really happening. Instead, he devised a plan. He would go undercover as a regular customer. To avoid recognition, he enlisted the help of a professional disguise artist who gave him a slightly scruffy beard, a pair of glasses, and an everyday wardrobe that made him blend in. Using a fake name, Eric Dawson, he booked a basic maintenance service at one of his mid-tier locations in a busy suburban shopping district. Lucas chose this specific shop because it had received the most customer complaints in recent months. It wasn't one of the flagship locations, but it had been a steady performer in the past. If things had gone downhill here, it was likely a sign of larger issues across the company. As he pulled into the parking lot, he took a deep breath and reminded himself to stay objective. This wasn't just about catching bad employees, it was about understanding what had gone wrong and finding a way to fix it. With that in mind, he stepped out of his car and walked toward the entrance, ready to uncover the truth about his own business. As Lucas stepped through the front door of Grant's Automotive, he was immediately struck by the state of disarray. The waiting area, which was supposed to offer a clean and welcoming environment for customers, looked neglected. The floor had visible grease stains, the chairs were worn down, and an old coffee machine in the corner sat empty, its pot covered in dried residue. A cluttered counter with scattered paperwork and an unattended ringing phone completed the chaotic first impression. Lucas glanced around, noticing that several customers were seated, their expressions ranging from mildly irritated to outright frustrated. At the front desk, a young woman named Emily was scrambling to juggle multiple tasks at once. She was answering phone calls, flipping through files, and attempting to help a man standing impatiently at the counter. Despite the obvious stress, she maintained a polite and professional tone, apologizing for the delay. However, her coworker Travis stood just a few feet away, leaning against the counter with his eyes glued to his phone. He seemed completely unconcerned about the growing line of customers. Lucas observed as Emily gave him a quick glance, clearly hoping for some assistance, but Travis simply sighed and continued scrolling. Lucas decided to wait his turn in line, using the opportunity to listen in on customer interactions. A woman at the front of the line was complaining that her car had been in the shop for 2 days longer than promised. "I just need an update," she said, exasperated. "No one is answering my calls." Without even looking up, Travis muttered, "We're short-staffed, you'll get a call when it's ready." His tone was dismissive, and the woman's face fell in disbelief. Emily, overhearing the exchange, quickly jumped in. "I can check on that for you, ma'am," she said with a reassuring smile. "Give me just a moment." When it was finally Lucas's turn, he approached the desk, keeping his expression neutral. "I have a maintenance appointment under the name Eric Dawson," he said. Emily nodded and quickly found his booking. "Great, Mr. Dawson. We'll get your car checked in. It should take about an hour," she said, still balancing 2 different tasks at once. Lucas took his key and stepped aside, but not before catching Travis mutter, Another one? Great. Lucas frowned. The lack of professionalism was obvious, and as he turned toward the garage, he knew one thing for certain: he was just getting started. Lucas took a seat in the waiting area, casually observing the operation as a regular customer. The longer he watched, the more problems became clear. A handful of customers were waiting much longer than promised, and the frustration in the air was palpable. A father with 2 restless kids sighed as he checked his watch, while an elderly man muttered something under his breath about terrible service. Lucas glanced toward the service bays where mechanics were moving frantically between cars. It didn't take long for him to spot the root of the issue: disorganization and a lack of leadership. From his vantage point, Lucas could see Jordan, one of the mechanics, kneeling by a car with a wrench in hand, clearly frustrated. "Hey, where's the part for the Ultima?" he called out. Another mechanic shrugged. "Not in yet. We've been out of stock for a week." Jordan groaned and shook his head. "Then why did they tell the customer we could have it done today?" No one had an answer. Lucas could feel the tension. Mechanics were working hard, but the shop's supply system was a mess, causing unnecessary delays and miscommunication with customers. Meanwhile, Lucas spotted the shop manager, Rick, standing near the back door, sipping a coffee with his arms crossed. Unlike his overworked employees, he seemed completely unbothered by the chaos around him. Every few minutes, he glanced at his phone and barely acknowledged the mechanics or customers. Lucas decided to test him. Standing up, he approached Rick casually. "Hey, looks like things are really busy. Do you guys always have this kind of backlog?" Rick barely looked at him before chuckling. "Yeah, it's been a rough few weeks. But customers complain about everything, so what can you do?" he said, shrugging. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Seems like a lot of the mechanics are struggling with missing parts. Is that a regular issue?" Rick sighed, clearly uninterested. "That's corporate's problem, not mine," he said, before turning back to his phone. Lucas clenched his jaw. This was exactly the kind of attitude that led to bad service. Instead of stepping in to help, Rick was distancing himself from the problems, letting his team drown under poor management and an inefficient system. Employees like Jordan were trying their best under difficult conditions, while customers like the ones in the waiting room were left in the dark. Lucas had seen enough. He was determined to dig deeper, but one thing was already certain: things needed to change, and fast. Lucas returned to the front desk, where the line of frustrated customers had only grown longer. He arrived just in time to witness another disaster unfold. A middle-aged man, his face flushed with anger, slammed a receipt onto the counter. "This bill is way higher than what I was quoted. I didn't authorize half of these charges," he said, his voice rising. Travis barely looked up from his phone. "Prices change sometimes. You should have read the fine print," he said, with a bored tone. The customer's jaw tightened. "Are you serious? I was told my repair would be $300. Now you're telling me it's $600. Travis let out an exaggerated sigh. "Look, if you have a problem, take it up with corporate. I just ring people up." Lucas watched in disbelief. This wasn't just bad service. This was outright theft. Customers weren't just being treated poorly, they were being manipulated into paying for services they didn't agree to. Before the situation escalated further, Emily stepped in. "Sir, let me take a look at your invoice," she said, pulling the paper toward her. She scanned it quickly and frowned. "I see the issue. It looks like an extra diagnostic fee was added that shouldn't be there. Let me fix that for you right now." The man's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you," he muttered. But Travis rolled his eyes. "Emily, why are you even bothering? Just send him on his way." Lucas had heard enough. He stepped forward, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Excuse me, is there someone else I can speak to? You don't seem very interested in helping," he said, staring directly at Travis. Travis scoffed. "What's your problem? I'm doing my job." Lucas held his gaze. "Are you?" he asked, his voice steady. For the first time, Travis looked uncertain. He shifted uncomfortably, but before he could respond, Lucas turned and walked away. He had seen enough. Between the disorganized shop, Rick's apathy, and Travis's open hostility toward customers, it was clear that the problem wasn't just a few bad employees, it was a broken culture. Lucas wasn't ready to reveal his identity just yet, but change was coming, and when it did, there would be no more excuses. Lucas had seen enough. The complete lack of professionalism, the mistreatment of customers, and the poor leadership were unacceptable. It was time to put an end to it. He made his way to the manager's office, where Rick was once again lounging in his chair, sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone. Lucas knocked on the door and stepped inside. Rick looked up lazily. "Yeah? What do you need?" he asked, barely bothering to sound interested. Lucas shut the door behind him, his expression unreadable. "I need to talk to the person in charge," he said calmly. Rick smirked. "That would be me," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Something wrong with your car, buddy?" Lucas folded his arms. "Something's wrong, all right, but not with my car. With this entire shop." He took off his glasses and reached up, peeling off the scruffy beard he had been wearing as part of his disguise. As recognition dawned, Rick's face went pale. "My name is Lucas Grant," he said firmly. "I'm the founder and CEO of Grant's Automotive, and I've been undercover here for the past 2 days." Rick's mouth opened, but no words came out. "I've watched customers get ignored and overcharged. I've seen employees work their tails off while you stand back and do nothing. And I've seen you let your shop fall into complete disarray because you don't think it's your problem." Lucas took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Well, it is your problem, and I'm done watching you fail my company," Rick finally stammered. "Look, I didn't realize—" "That's the problem," Lucas interrupted. "You don't realize. You don't pay attention. You don't step in when your team needs you, and you certainly don't care about the customers." He shook his head in disappointment. "Effective immediately, you're suspended while I conduct a full investigation into this location, and depending on what I find, your job may not be waiting for you when I'm done." Rick sat frozen, unable to argue. Lucas pulled out his phone and made a call. "Olivia, I need you at the shop now." Olivia, the company's regional HR manager, had been with him for years. She was no nonsense but fair, and she knew how to clean up a mess. She was exactly what this shop needed. As Lucas hung up, he turned back to Rick. "Gather the staff. I'm addressing them all tomorrow morning. And trust me, things are about to change." Lucas walked out of the office ready to take control. This wasn't just about fixing one shop. It was about restoring the integrity of his entire company. The next morning, Lucas stood in the center of the break room, facing the entire team. The tension was thick in the air. Employees exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what was coming. Some, like Emily and Jordan, looked hopeful, while others, including Travis, seemed uneasy. Rick, who had been suspended the night before, was noticeably absent. Beside Lucas stood Olivia, the regional HR manager, clipboard in hand, ready to assist in rolling out the necessary changes. Lucas cleared his throat and spoke with authority. "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not here to punish hard-working employees. I'm here to fix what's broken. And after what I've seen, it's clear that changes need to happen, immediately." He turned first to Emily, whose eyes widened as he addressed her. "Emily, you've been running this front desk almost entirely on your own. You've handled angry customers with patience, cleaned up mistakes that weren't yours, and stepped up when no one else would. That's the kind of leadership this company needs. Effective immediately, I'm promoting you to assistant manager." Emily gasped, her hands covering her mouth. "Are you serious?" Lucas smiled. "Very serious. You've earned it." The room erupted into applause, with Jordan clapping the loudest. Next, Lucas looked toward Jordan, the overworked mechanic. "Jordan, I saw you trying to keep things running in the shop, despite the lack of support and missing parts. That's not fair to you, and it's not how I want my employees to be treated. I'm approving an immediate bonus for your hard work and dedication." Jordan blinked in disbelief. "A bonus? Really?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, and moving forward, we're restructuring how we handle parts inventory so you don't have to deal with these shortages again." Finally, Lucas's gaze landed on Travis, who had shrunk into the back of the room. "Travis, your attitude toward customers and coworkers has been unacceptable. From today forward, you'll be placed on probation and required to complete customer service training. If I don't see improvement, you won't have a second chance." Travis swallowed hard and nodded. Lucas turned back to the group. "More staff will be hired. Leadership will be held accountable. Things will change, starting today. The mood shifted from uncertainty to hope. Employees whispered to each other, realizing that this wasn't just a speech, real improvements were coming. 2 weeks later, Lucas pulled into the parking lot of the auto shop, this time without a disguise. He had deliberately stayed away to give the team time to adjust to the changes without feeling micromanaged. Now, he wanted to see if the promises he made were being followed through. As he stepped inside, the difference was noticeable immediately. The waiting area, once cluttered and neglected, was now clean and organized. The coffee station had been restocked, and the front desk was staffed by 2 employees working efficiently, greeting customers with professionalism. The air of frustration that had once lingered was gone, replaced with a sense of order and energy. At the front desk, Emily stood confidently, clipboard in hand, directing the workflow and checking in with staff. Her once frazzled demeanor had been replaced by the poise of a true leader. She spotted Lucas and beamed. "Mr. Grant, I didn't know you were coming in today." Lucas smiled. "Just Lucas is fine, and I wanted it to be a surprise. How's everything going?" Emily's pride was evident. "It's been amazing. We're fully staffed now, and the team actually feels supported. Olivia has been checking in regularly, and the new training sessions have made a huge difference." Lucas turned his attention to the service area, where he spotted Jordan wiping down his workstation, chatting with a fellow mechanic. When Jordan noticed him, he grinned. "Hey, Mr. Grant, I have to tell you, the new inventory system is a lifesaver. We finally have the parts we need, and I don't have to waste half my day chasing down missing orders." "That's what I like to hear," Lucas replied. "And how's the workload?" "Way more manageable," Jordan said. "And the bonus you gave me? I finally got my truck fixed. No more stressing about getting to work on time." Lucas was pleased to see Travis as well, now assisting a customer with an actual smile. His previously dismissive attitude was gone, replaced with professionalism. Emily had mentioned that he had taken the customer service training seriously and was making an effort to change. As the day went on, Lucas checked in with various employees and even spoke with a few customers, all of whom praised the improvements. The transformation wasn't just about better service. It was about a culture shift. Later, in a staff meeting, Lucas addressed the team. "I couldn't be prouder of the progress you've made, but this is just the beginning. The goal isn't just to fix one shop, it's to make sure every location runs this way. That starts with you." The applause that followed told Lucas everything he needed to know. This wasn't just a temporary fix, it was a new standard. As Lucas stepped out of the shop that afternoon, he felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction. The transformation he had witnessed over the past 2 weeks wasn't just about fixing one failing location, it was about setting a new standard for his entire company. For too long, he had relied on reports and financial statements to gauge success, but this experience had reminded him that numbers don't always tell the whole story. It was the people, his employees and his customers, who truly defined the success of Grant's Automotive. Before leaving, he gathered the entire team for a final meeting. What happened here wasn't just about cleaning up a mess. It was about building something stronger, he said, his tone firm but encouraging. "You've all proven that when leadership steps up and employees are valued, we create a business that people actually trust." He then turned to Emily, Jordan, and the rest of the staff. "This isn't just about this one shop. I'm implementing quarterly site visits at every location, and I want direct feedback from employees. If something isn't working, I want to hear it before it becomes a problem." Olivia stepped forward, adding, "We're also launching an anonymous employee suggestion system, both online and in person, so every voice is heard. And starting next month, we'll recognize one outstanding employee from each shop, yes, with bonuses." The team erupted into cheers at that last part. As the meeting wrapped up, Emily approached Lucas, her confidence shining. "I never thought I'd get a chance like this," she said sincerely. "Thank you for actually listening and caring." Lucas smiled. "You earned it, Emily. And if I learned anything from this experience, it's that staying connected to the ground level is the most important thing I can do as a leader." As he drove away, Lucas reflected on the past few weeks. He had walked into that shop expecting to find problems, but he had also found dedication, resilience, and employees who truly cared. It wasn't about punishing mistakes. It was about creating a system where good work was recognized, problems were addressed, and leadership actually led. This was more than just a wake-up call. It was a turning point. And Lucas was determined to make sure that Grant's Automotive would never lose its way again. The story of Lucas Grant's undercover experience teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, accountability, and staying connected. As businesses grow, it's easy for leaders to lose touch with daily operations, relying on reports instead of first-hand experience. However, true leadership requires direct engagement, listening to employees, and addressing systemic issues before they spiral. By stepping in, recognizing hard work, and holding people accountable, Lucas not only fixed a failing shop but set a new standard for his company. The lesson? Success isn't just about profits. It's about creating a culture where employees feel valued and customers receive the service they deserve.